Yes. Well, I didn't read them. Well, so you never got to sleep?
Jeff was waiting for us to go over there.
No, Tal was busy putting film on people, probably.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Did you went over to the pilot and said, can you stand up, put on autopilot?
Okay. Today we're going to start on Daf Yomi Warriors. You test them in the middle of the page. Okay. It's really in the middle of the page, 19a. Thank Hashem, we're able to learn Torah every day, and this chuspa learning we should have the base of Migdash immediately. For learning the Nishma, Sabbath, all the Basra Daf, Ben Xian, and for Shleima, for Avon David Ben Sarah, and for Gedal Getzel Eliezer Ben. It's better. Okay. It says that when a neighbor has a wall, they're not supposed to put next to it things that give off heat, because that could ruin the wall. So certain things that give off heat while they decompose. One of them is the olive pits, the manure, salt, or rocks. The type of rocks we were talking about were like flintstones. Somehow they give off heat as well. Tanan Hassam was taught in a Mishnah in Shabbos. It says, now there's a rule on Shabbos that you're not allowed to enclose a pot, like to wrap up a pot in something that gives off heat. It's called hatmana. Hatmana b'davar ha'mesav hevel. Insulate. Can't insulate a pot with something that gives off heat. And the reason for this takana is because you may end up using ash from the oven or from the grill, which has in it little embers of the coal. You can end up moving that and extinguishing it or making it flare up. So there's a gzeira for that gives off heat. You might end up using gremets. That's the term for that ash. You're also not allowed to use anything else that gives off heat. So the Mishnah says, what are you allowed to insulate a pot with? What are you not allowed to insulate a pot with? We're talking about insulating it on Friday afternoon for Shabbos. Because we have hot food on Shabbos, but we can't make a fire. We can leave a fire on, or we can have something hot that was insulated. They didn't have hot plates. They didn't have hot plates. They would remove the coals from the oven, and that was a hot plate. Right? So it says, "Ein time no begefes bezevel." You can't use all of these things. Exactly what you're not allowed to put next to a wall. You're not allowed to put the olive pits and peels, and you can't use fertilizer if you want to do that. But you can't use salt. Sid, you can't use this plaster or lime. You can't use sand. Whether it's wet or whether it's dry. We're talking about the sand. If it's wet or dry, that could be a different texture. Either one, you're not allowed to use. Now, the Gemara asks a question. What's the difference over here in our Mishnah when we're talking about what you're allowed to put next to a wall? We said the Ktan Islam, you're not allowed to put next to the wall rocks. Like Ktan Ichal, we didn't say you're not allowed to put sand next to the wall. Why? When it comes to Shabbos, to insulating a pot, the Ktan Ichal, it says sand. What's the difference between here, where it says rocks, and over there, where it says sand? Like Ktan Islam, it doesn't say the rocks. So what it says, one of the items that it says here, it doesn't say there, and one of the items that it says there, it doesn't say here. Rav Yosef, so Rav Yosef comes along to explain, because it's just practical. You don't insulate a pot with rocks. You would insulate a pot with sand, but not with rocks. Amalei Abaya, so Abaya says, are we only saying things that are practical? We're saying things even that are not practical. We're just learning the halacha. Let's say someone would want to do this. For example, would someone want to do hatmana, insulate a pot with shearings of wool or tongues of purple wool? The Tanya was taught in a brisa. you're allowed to use these types of wool, tufts of wool, to insulate a pot. Ubemukin, you're allowed to use mukin as shmatas, like torn clothing, I think, rags. Even though they're muktzah, right? That's a shmata. So, not great way they would say he's in the shmata business.
Yeah, they did well.
So, but in metaltanis, even though it's muktzah, but whatever the case is, even though this is something that no one would normally use, something that he's preparing to sell, he wouldn't put his pot, wrap his cholent or his soup inside this. But nevertheless, the Mishnah, the Brisa says it. So why can't it say something that is not typical, even though that's the halacha? Rather, Abaya says, Abaya telling Rabbi Yosef, he disagrees with his explanation. He says, Yagid alav reya. Yagid alav reya means that you look at its friend will share information about him. It goes like this. Tana Cheslayim, sorry? One sheds light on the other. Tana Cheslayim, over here it says rocks, but it means also sand. Tana Samchal, over there it says sand, and it means also the rocks. Well, let's not get so particular about this. Tell you everything's okay. Put the piece in. Amalei Rava says to Abaye, if one is shedding light on the other, if that's what we're doing here, why do we need to say almost everything by one and almost everything by the other? And then we'll say that one sheds light on the other. Just say the entire thing by one, and with one thing at the other, and it will shed light on the other. Elama Rava has a different shot. Awesome time with like Tani slime. What's the reason over there by the pots? We didn't say rocks. Because the rocks will crack the pot. Time with like Tani chal. And what's the reason why we didn't say sand by the wall? It says Mishum de Mechame Chaim and Makriri Karer. See, sand won't actually ruin the wall. Because sand it's just an insulator. So if you put in something hot, it will keep it hot. If you put in something cold, it will keep it cold. So it doesn't automatically ruin the wall. So when it comes to food, you put in hot food because you heat it up beforehand, it's going to keep it hot and even make it hotter. But if you put in something cold, like the wall is cold, it's going to make it cold, which is not a problem for the wall. That's why it doesn't say it's actually a halachic difference. What would you would be allowed to put next to your friend's wall? Sand, yes. Even though on Shabbos that would be a problem to put a pot in. Yeah. They said about when they invented the thermos. So they said it's an amazing thing. You put in something hot, it stays hot. You put in something cold and it stays cold. So the guy said, but how does it know? Okay. Here we're saying that it actually increases temperature. Could be there's different types of sand,
Like the beach, in the day, it burns you. As soon as the sun goes away,
it cools off quickly. Yeah, well, that's the idea. The water continues, it gets hot at night. It's warmer by night. So the breeze switches, right? Okay, the question over here is, Vatani Rabbi Shechal. 1 second, we have a problem. According to the way Rava said this, you're allowed to put sand next to a wall because the sand doesn't increase the heat. So we say, 1 second. We say, but Rabbi Shia says you're not allowed to put sand next to a wall. Where says Hassan bin Masuna over there, the sand was wet. The problem is moisture, not the sand. And we said moisture next to a wall is problematic. Tanadida, Nami Lisne, Velukne, Bimasuna. So why didn't our Mishnah also say that you're not allowed to put sand? Then we would interpret it that the sand is wet. The Gemara says we don't need to do that. Hatanale Amasamayim, we already said that you're not allowed to have a stream, a channel, going near your friend's well. Because so in other words, we're aware that moisture is not good for the well. 1 second, you're saying if we said one thing, we can't say the other thing because we would understand that. But when it came to the water channel, we said that you're not allowed to do it. And we also said that you're not allowed to put down the launderer's pit, that he puts water in there. Actually, that was talking about puts in the detergent, right? But that was also because of moisture. It says Hanu Trichi. Oh no, those are necessary to discuss. Because Ditan Amasamayif would only say the water channel Mishum de Kviya because that's always there. And that's more of a problem. But when it comes to the launderer's pit, it's not necessarily always going to be there. It depends if that's the guy's job. If his job is a laundry, that's what he's going to have. I had a friend that his father had a laundromat. For nights they lived upstairs. Said it was terrible. They always smelled the chemicals from the laundromat. You walk in there, it's always anyway. So this Nevrechus HaKaivsim depends if he changes his job, he's going to do that. It's not like there's a water channel that needs to water the field and you always have that there. No, depends on what's going on. So I would say that maybe isn't such a problem. That's more temporary. Or I could say the opposite. When it comes to the laundry, there's a pit over there that has the detergent in it with the water. So I could say that because that water is sitting, so that seeps into the ground more and will ruin the wall. But the water channel which is flowing, I would say that maybe is acceptable. It doesn't seep in so much because the water is always moving. It's not stagnant. So tzricha, so that's why it's necessary to have both. Okay. Now we said that you're not allowed to put seeds or to plow right up to the wall. You have to distance it 3 tvachim. We say 3 tvachim or 4 amos. 3 tvachim. It says seeds, the plow, and also urine. 3 tvachim from the wall. The Gemara says, but if you're putting seeds there, then obviously you have to plow to get the seeds there. So why do we need both examples of seeds and plowing? If you're putting seeds, then you have to plow already, so you have to distance that 3 tvachim just because of the plowing. The Gemara says, we're talking about where you're planting by hand, you're not actually plowing. So the Gemara says machresha, but when it says plowing, we said that there's a problem of just to put the seeds there. So why do we have to say the problem is the plowing? The problem is the seeds that you're going to have. It says Becher Shleilanas. How do you know you're putting seeds? Maybe you're putting trees in. You're plowing for the trees. But you're going to have to water them. So the problem is because of the water. So why do we need all of these examples of what you're not allowed to do? There's so many things in each of these examples that tell me that you're not allowed to do it. It's either the plowing, the seeds, or the water.
4 amos for the scrubbing. The one we're talking about is the soaking.
Before the Gemara was referring to the soaking. Now we're not talking about the laundry. Now we're talking about seeds, plowing, and urine. It says Tana Eretz Yisrael Kai. We're referring to Eretz Yisrael. We're over there. The ksiv lamatar shemaim tishtamayim. From the rain it drinks water. You'll drink water. That means that you didn't need to have water sitting there or a water channel. We just get water from the rain, and that wasn't our problem. So in other words, we're talking about seeds that you're not using plowing. We're talking about plowing that you're not using seeds. And we're not talking about a case of water because there's water comes from the rain. Does this mean to say that the seeds, the roots, when you sow grain, the roots grow sideways and it's going to ruin the wall? But Tanan, that can't be the case because we have a Mishnah that says, "Hamaver chesed gefen."
Unless you plant the bamboo.
Oh,
Bamboo, you go that way, and the next shoot shows up a few feet.
I think there's two types of bamboo.
Yeah, I'm saying,
Yeah.
most bamboo does
Yeah.
that. If
They're
you
in
come in
trouble.
my backyard, you see, I got bamboo, one here, one 10 feet later, one
Uh-huh.
5 feet, and I cut them down the same thing.
It's a big job. It's high maintenance. Yeah. Oh yeah.
But Nachamak is for the bamboo, it stays just locally, it doesn't spread. So many times.
Naftali, you wanted to ask something? Okay. We said 1 second, Vatanan, we have a Mishnah that says, if someone is layering a vine, you know what layering is? You take a piece of the branch, put it back in the ground, and you bring it up again. And then it grows roots on the bottom. Yeah. So they can do it in the air also. They don't have to do it in the ground. Basically, you grow new roots from a branch. In the air, they call it air layering. You know, they do it. They take they scratch the bark a little bit, and they take soil. They wrap it like in tinfoil. They just smush it up against the tree, and it grows roots right. Then they cut it off, and they have a new tree. So here, but they would bend it down into the ground, and then it would start to grow in that soil, and then they could cut it off and start a new tree. So 1 second. It says if someone's layering a vine, if you don't have on top of that space where it's going underground, if it's not deep 3 tvachim, then you can't plant seeds on top because you're not supposed to plant seeds in a vineyard. Now this is not actually a vineyard. This is only one vine, but nevertheless you can't put it right together. V'tani Allah, and we learned on this. You're allowed to put the seeds right on the side. You're allowed to put the seeds right on the side. You see that seeds don't grow sideways. We're not concerned about it growing sideways. What we're concerned over here is that it's going to make holes in the ground. The seeds, machlidin, Rashi, Rabbi Hananel says machlidin means it takes the strength out of the ground. It's going to make the soil soft. What grows around it. I guess what it means is that these little microbes or worms or whatever that go in the soil, it's going to make the soil soft around where the roots of the seeds are, and that's not good for the trees. That's not good for the wall.
Is this seeds for a tree?
No, this is seeds for grain, sowing grain.
Just
You're not allowed to put urine near the wall 3 tvachim. Amar Rabba Bar Bachana says person that's allowed to urinate next to his friend's wall. When the prophet Elio, I think, tells prophesies about what's going to happen to Achav and his family, it says, I'm going to cut off from Achav anyone that urinates against the wall, which is referring to any men, and which means either means a captive or it's referring to all the wealth that's in his house. Ba'azav could mean people that are free, or it could mean anything that's all cattle that's outside in the field. It's going to cut off his whole family, everyone from the family, all the men and all the everything else. Ba'anan tanan, 1 second. So what we see from that is that what's the term that's used for a male member of the family? You say mashtin bakir, someone that urinates against the wall. You see, obviously you're allowed to urinate against your friend's wall. What are you talking about? The Mishnah says you're not allowed to. You have to keep the urine 3 tvachim away from the wall. It says Hassam b'shayfchen. Over there we're talking about not that he's urinating against the wall. Here we're talking about where he has a bedpan, or he has a bucket, and he's taking that bucket and pouring it on the wall, and pouring it next to the wall. That's not allowed. But one person to urinate is different. Yeah.
it's like if you go into the bathroom and you see a urinal, you know it's the men's room. Because they
Right.
no, just
What about a bidet?
Tashema. You're not allowed to pour water on your friend's wall. I'm reading from the parentheses. Not allowed to pour water on your friend's next to your friend's wall unless you distance it 3 tvachim. So, but it's a kasha on who was the one that allowed this? Rabba Bar Bachana, that allows to urinate it next to your friend's wall. Says that's talking about also when you're pouring from a bucket. That's a different amount. Tashma. It says you're not allowed to urinate next to your friend's wall unless you're 3 tvachim away. When do we say this? Because Levanim, that's if it's a brick wall. Because of Avanim, but if it's a stone wall, you have to distance the amount where it won't damage the wall. But how much is that? Tefach. That's a 1 tefach away from the wall, because you don't want the foundation of the wall to get weaker. But if it's on bedrock, then mutter, that's acceptable. Then to urinate there. Well, whatever the case is, Rabba Bar Bachana says you're allowed to, and here we say you have to distance 3 tvachim if it's a brick wall, and 1 tefach if it's not. Tiyufta Rabba Bar Bachana tiyufta. It's a strong question on Rabba Bar Bachana. The way you read this is Tiyufta Rabba Bar Bachana. Is this a strong question on Rabba Bar Bachana? And the Gemara says yes, tiyufta. This is a very strong question. But Rabba Bar Bachana Krakamer, what about the pasuk? Well, it's a pasuk about Achav. It says Hasamachi come over there. What it means? Afilu midi the darkiler stini bekir leishaviknale. It doesn't mean all that that men are allowed to urinate against the wall. It doesn't mean that. It means that anything that would urinate against the wall is not going to be left alive. My neo, what is that? Kalba, the dog, even the dog. Male dogs. Okay. Yeah. And not
male dog lives. No, female dog crouches. Male dog lives to live.
The doctor says that female dogs crouch and male dogs lift up the leg. So, okay.
I know. I'm on to see it, dog. You can tell what I do.
What do I know that the dog was supposed to have?
That's the person.
Oh, that's the guy. That's the guy that's.
Yeah, who knows? Like, he's a maven.
Yeah, when I first started to teach, so I asked the teacher before him, tell me some advice, he said 2 things. Keep a bar of chocolate in your pocket, because you're going to need energy, and you need sometimes like quick energy. And the other thing is read this book about dog training. Okay.
I used to say that terrible threes, raising a kid is the same as teenage years. So if you just remember everything that you did when you become a teenager, it's the exact same.
Yeah, terrible twos. At least now they call it terrible twos.
No, terrible twos, right? Oh, terrific threes by Peter Roque. Fantastic fours, fabulous fives.
You know, in a Hasidic family, it's not really 2. Sometimes it's 3. And then,
they lose track.
Amar Rav Tuvi Bar Kisna Amar Shmuel. This was said in the name of Shmuel. We enter into a slightly different topic here. Rakik is like a wafer. Is that how they translate it there? The rule is like this: that if there's a corpse in a house, and there's a window, and there's a house right next to it, so the impurity travels through this window and into the house next door. An open window. Now, if the window isn't 4 tvachim by 4 tvachim, then the impurity doesn't travel through it. It has to be that size to travel through. Now, what would diminish the size of the window? Put plants there. Sometimes on a windowsill there's plants and different things. Would that diminish the size? Well, here, Rav Tuvi Bar Kisna says, in the name of Shmuel, that if there's a wafer there, the window's still the same size. My year,
is this a window in a wall of a joining?
Yeah, I think it's
townhome.
I think so.
Yeah,
I think that's how
2 separate
right.
properties.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Doesn't make sense.
It would be the highest number.
Yeah, it's under the same roof, and we consider it like it's traveling through. Now the Gemara says, "My area rakik." Why do you have to say if it's a wafer? Afilo avanami, even if it's a thick bread, also same thing should apply. Gemara says, "Laimi bayi kamer." It goes without saying. Laimi bayi of not only a thick bread, given this chazi the echselei, that it's since it's fit to use laimi. He's not going to leave it there. He's going to take it away. So of course it's not going to be memayet. It's not going to be bottled to the chalain to say, okay, now I just diminish the size of the window. Aval rakik the mamis, but a wafer that sometimes could become disgusting and becomes like when it gets wet. What's it called?
Moldy.
Not just moldy, but it's
Gross.
yeah, soggy. Gets soggy when it gets wet. So ema bituli mevatale. Maybe he's just going to leave it there. It gets wet from the moisture of the wall. Maybe he's just going to leave it there. Kamash malan, we say that no, and we don't say that it's considered bottle to the chalain, and we say that it decreases the size. Moshe Chaim, we had this in sukkah when you want to diminish the size of a sukkah. Is it bottled to the floor? Is it not bottled to the floor? Here we're saying, is it bottled to the wind, to the wall, or not bottled to the wall? Well, the Gemara says, "V'tepikle dahavli davarshim mekabel tuma, v'chol davarshim mekabel tuma, enachetz pnei tuma." The Gemara says, 1 second. Why do you have to say that it's because that you're going to take it away or something, that it's not considered bottled to it? I have a different problem. The fact is that if it's a wafer, then it's grain that was mixed with water, and anything that's mixed with water is makabel tuma. Food that gets wet is makabel tuma. So the Gemara said, and anything that's makabel tuma doesn't doesn't block tuma from going from one place to another. So it says shenil shmei peiros. He didn't use water, he used fruit juices, used apple juice, something to make the bread, mezainas bread, mezainas matzah, egg matzah. Meisve, the Gemara has a question. Let's say you have a box that's full of straw, or you have a barrel that's full of gregors are dates or figs? Figs. Yeah, I should remember that because the gimel there for the gregors is to tell you that it's a fig. So a barrel that's full of figs, that's inside the window. See, the thing is like this. The barrel itself is makabel tuma. The box itself is makabel tuma. The box cannot intercept the tuma from going through. However, the food could. Because the food, if it's not wet, it will stop the tuma from going through. It's not makabel tuma. Box is yes makabel tuma. So what I have to do is like this. I have to see, would this be able to stand on its own without the box, without the barrel? If it would, then it's chaitzitz, then it intercepts the tuma and it stops it from going through. Bim lav, but if it can't stand on its own, then ain't chaitzitz, and it doesn't stop the tuma from going from one house to the other. Gemara says, 1 second. Why do you have to say that? Or why are you saying that it will stop the tuma from going through? But she's going to remove it anyway. It shouldn't stop the tuma. It shouldn't be bottled to there because he's going to take the straw and feed it to his animal. Gemara says, no, Besaria, it's rotting already. So he's not going to feed it to his animal. Chazi Latina, but he can use it for tar, for make it into bricks, because the straw is used for bricks. This like kutzi, no, you can't do it because it has thorns in it, and in order to make it into bricks, you have to step on it or to squish it. And you can't do that if there's thorns in it. Chazi lasaka, but he can still burn it. It says no, b'matuna, you can't burn it because it's wet. Chazi lasagadol, but you can use it for a huge fire. Even something that's moist, but if you put it into a huge fire, it loses the moisture and then it starts to burn. So it says hasagad leishchiach. We're not concerned about that. Those large fires aren't so common. People have small fires; they don't have large fires, so he's not going to remove it. Gemara says, "Gregor sachazile." But what about the figs? He's going to eat them. Amashmuel b'shit shrifu. No, they have worms in them. B'chein tani rab barbu b'shit shrifu. They have worms in them. Okay, so we got into this. Because we were talking about the moisture that comes off the wall, and we're saying that if there's a wafer on the wall, if you're going to leave it there, if you're not going to leave it there, said that Shmuel says that it doesn't diminish the size of the window. What type of barrel are you talking about? If the barrel, we're thinking that it's a clay barrel. if the mouth is facing outside, that means that the tumah is in this house right here. The barrel is facing this way. The back of the barrel is here and the opening is here. So if that's the case, then the barrel should be able to intercept the tumah. And the reason is because anything that's clay, the tumah only becomes tameh from inside, not from outside. So here, the tumah, the corpse is on the house that is only touching the outside of the barrel. So that should block the tumah from going through. It says, it's not matama from the outside. The Gemara says, Ella the puma lagav. We're talking about the mouth is facing the other way. It's facing into the house with the corpse. You can say another teretz, the puma labar. Really, the mouth is outside. We're talking about not a clay barrel, but a metal barrel, which becomes tameh from the outside. I didn't know they make those. I thought they make them out of wood usually. That's the ones that we see. They make them out of wood. Beer kegs, right?
Oh, the aluminum kegs.
But they do have aluminum kegs for those little things. That's what you meant, right?
The smaller ones.
Yeah, in Rhode Island, the Chabad house one time wasn't in their location. They rented the location across the street. It was called a
brewery.
It was a brewery. It was called Tortilla Flats, and it was this Mexican restaurant. And we were upstairs from this place, but they had these barrels all the way up. You had to walk along the side of these barrels. We called it, instead of Chabad house, we called it base taco. That was anyway, beer barrels all the way up. Meisri, the Gemara has a question. Asavim, grass, shetolshan, that was taken out of the ground, v'nicham b'chalain, and it was put into the window. Or maybe they grew in the window. Matlanias, this is rags. That don't have 3 by 3 fingers. They're not like the size of the smallest cloth. Or a limb or flesh that's hanging off an animal, a wild animal or a bird that's resting by the window. We're talking about what's going to diminish the size of the window. Let's say there's a non-Jew that's sitting by the window. Now, the non-Jew is not susceptible to impurity, which is opposed to a Jew, which a Jew could become tummy. Non-Jew doesn't become tummy. But ben shmeina hamunach b'chalain, or let's say there's a baby that's in its eighth month, that was born in its 8th month of pregnancy, which we consider not viable. So that's in the window. Ba'melach and salt, klecheres, or a earthenware vessel, or sefer Torah, kulam amaytim b'chalain. All of the things that we mentioned diminish the size of the window. And if the window was 4 tvachim, then it's now not 4 tvachim because this was there, and now the tumah doesn't spread from one to another. Aval hasheleg va'barad va'glid va'kfor va'mayim, but snow and ice and other types of ice and frost and water, those do not diminish the size of the window. Gemara is going to go through each of these examples and say, why do they diminish the size of the window? 1 second. You're going to take the grass. The animal's going to eat the grass. It says, no, bafrazda, it's a type of grass that's poisonous. I don't know what it is. Poison ivy. But does it say what type of poison it is? Afrasta?
There are various opinions with regard to the correct spelling. Some commentaries buy it with
Oleander. Okay. I don't think so. Or it grew on its own. That was the next case. 1 second. Given the kasha l'kaisa shakalu, you're not going to leave it there. If you have grass growing in the wall, that's slowly going to erode the wall, and you have to remove that, right? You don't want things growing on the wall. So marava b'kaisel chorva. No, we're talking about that the house is collapsing anyway. So you're not doing construction on it. You're just leaving it. No, we're talking about even if it's the house is there to stay. And you're not going to remove any, and you will clear it up. So why over here is the grass going to diminish the size of the wall? It's growing outside the window, and because it's tall grass, it's going inside the window and it's stopping it over there. So like maybe like bamboo that's growing up from somewhere else and sticking into the window. Matlani eschaz leila kriya delavusha. 1 second. Those little shmatas, those patches, they could use it for a patch on a garment, even if it's very small. It says no, besmichta, because it's so thick. It was a thick cloth. That's why you can't use it as a patch. A patch has to be a thin cloth. The chazilumna, but the thick cloths you can use if there's a bloodletter. They have to put a gauze on the, after they pull the needle out or whatever, they put a gauze on it and to hold it. So this thick thing you could use as a gauze. It says briska, no, it's scratchy, and you're not going to use that as a gauze. You don't want to use steel wool as a gauze. Iberiska, if it's scratchy, and it's not 3x3. 1 second. How does it translate this scratchy thing? What is the word that they use in English? Sackcloth. If it's sackcloth, then why are we saying that it's a 3x3 at spois, 3x3 finger breadth? It should be a 4x4 tfachim size. Arba'ah would be tfachim. It should be a 4x4 tfachim, because the shear of what's considered a garment when it comes to sackcloth is much larger than when it comes to other cloth. We said can riska. We're not actually talking about sackcloth. We're talking about something that's hard like sackcloth, even though it's not sackcloth. Okay, next case of that brisa where we said things that will block the tumah from going through a window. What about the limb or the flesh that's hanging off an animal? We said that, or a wild animal. So why does that diminish the size of the window? Arkavasla, it's going to run away. It says no, but Kishura, it's tied down. So shachadle, but he's going to shecht it. Then he's going to take it away. It says no, but tmeim, it's a non-kosher animal. So mazman lenachi is going to sell it. It says bekusha, it's so lean that he's not even going to sell it. There's nothing on it. Pasuk kushadi leilaklavim, but maybe he'll take it off and throw it to the dogs. Just keeping the kitzar belechaim layavid. He doesn't do that. He's not going to throw it to the dogs. It's painful for the animal. Okay, what about the bird that's in the window? We said that that's going to diminish the size of the window. It says parach vazel. It's going to fly away. It says bakasha. No, it's tied. Shachadli is going to shecht it. It says betami. No, it's a non-kosher bird. Mazim leilanachi is going to sell it to a non-Jew. It says bakalnisa. It's a little tiny bird. It's a sparrow or what are those, finch or something. It's a little tiny bird. So he's not going to do anything. You can't sell that for meat. There's nothing on it. It says Yav leilinuki. He's going to give it to a child to play. No, but Masaret, this is a dangerous bird. It's going to scratch. It says Kalnisa le Masarta. Sparrows don't scratch. It's or whatever those things are. It says can Kalnisa. No, we didn't mean that. It's actually a sparrow. We meant that it was like a sparrow, but it's dangerous. What about the non-Jew that's sitting by the window? Why does he interfere with the tumah? I mean, it's the same thing the whole time.
Yeah, it says,
In the Hebrew, it's the same the whole time. So Koi Basel is going to stand up and go. But what he's saying is he's going to diminish the size of the window because he's sitting there. He's going to stand up and walk away. It says Bakafas. No, he's tied. His friend's going to come and untie him. They're not going to leave him there. It says B'Mitzaira. No, he doesn't have friends. No one can get close to him. He's a Mitzaira. He's a leper. But the Mitzayra also may have a friend that's another Mitzayra. He's going to come and help him. It says we're talking about that he's tied up because of the kingdom. No one's coming to untie him. What about there's a baby that's in its eighth, that was born in the 8th month. So 1 second, the mother's going to come and it's going to move him. It says b'Shabbos. We're talking about on Shabbos. On Shabbos, that baby is muktzah. The Tani was taught in the Brayso ben Shmeina. There's a baby that's not viable. He's like a stone. B'Shabbos, you're not allowed to move him on Shabbos. But the mother can go and lean over him and to nurse him, so that sakana means sakana for the mother, that she shouldn't lose the milk.
Sakana for the baby.
Sakana for the baby, but the sakana for the it doesn't seem like we're concerned about the baby's life.
Failure to nurse will cause her to fall ill.
Yeah, failure to nurse will cause her to fall ill, because the baby we consider not viable.
So that if she would bend over without
Moving him to nurse.
Commentaries explain that this refers to the danger posed to the mother due to the buildup of milk. Others claim that although the child is not expected to survive any immediate danger it faces is
Very good.
cause
Whose
concern.
chan is that? The Rama. The Rama or the Rama? Rama. Uh-huh.
What
So
was that?
Talking about the baby.
he said, yeah, Jonathan read me a note in the Quran that says that most commentaries say it's referring to the mother, but there is a commentary that says that it's referring to the baby, that even though the baby is not viable, but you still can't withhold food so that it to shorten its life.
Tosfos gives a different.
And Tosfos says that like mere discomfort is not enough.
Are you aware of the reason that 7th and the 9th month are considered all right, but in the Talmud, the 8th month is considered dangerous?
No.
Oh, I was asking because I don't know. I was asking.
Oh, all right. I thought you were going to tell me something that.
No, I wish I knew.
No, I don't know. I don't know. It seems like that's just the way it was, and they had it calculated a little bit better.
Excuse me, Tosfos gave a totally different answer. We keep on saying. They're saying the reference here is to a baby already in the throes of death that will die before Shabbos ends and will be buried where it is, right? Which means a child. Therefore, it will not be removed from the opening even after the Shabbos.
Oh,
Tosfos said the name of the verse.
Right.
That's a different shot.
right. It's a different shot. Places has a different shot. Okay. Melech Hazile, salt. 1 second. What are you saying? Salt is going to diminish the size of the window, but he's going to use the salt. There's no b'merirta. It's one of these salts that you don't really use. It's pool salt or something. The salt they use with for the ice. So a kosher salt you can use.
Big salts.
Driveway salt.
The driveway salt. Chaziloidus, but you can use that for tanning. It says this bekoitzi. No, you can't because there's thorns in it, and when you do the tanning, it's going to scratch the hands of the tanner. Given the kasha l'kaisel shakla, but 1 second, salt on any material ruins that material. You put salt anywhere, it's like starts to crack. You can't put salt all just well, the yasva chaspa, you didn't put it down directly on the wall. You put it on top of a shard of clay on top of the wall, and okay. So the chaspa gufa techlet. So why do you tell me that the salt is what's interfering in lessening the size of the window? It's the shard of clay that's there. There's no the less bishura. It's so small that it's not counted. Kedetanan, it was taught in the Mishnah. What would be the smallest piece of a shard that would be considered a problem to carry on Shabbos? It's the type of how do they translate that over there? It's the type of shard that could go between a window.
Large enough to place between the window slat.
Something that was used to place between the slats.
Oh, it sounds like the blinds. So if you could stick it between
the blinds,
slats, I mean that would.
Right, something like that.
In those days, maybe they were fixed. They had the wood blinds that you turn.
Right, like shutters.
Shutters, louver shutters. Yeah.
So klicheres chazile, but what about if it's klicheres? He's going to remove it. So he's not going to leave it there. It says no, the mitan, if he's going to leave it there because it's dirty. But even if it's dirty, when the bloodletter comes to let the blood, he doesn't mind using a dirty thing to let it in. It says the minkav, no, it has a hole in it, so he's not going to use that either. Okay, now it's one of the things that was there was Sefer Torah. We said that was diminishing the size of the window. It says chazil mikra, but he's going to read from it. It says babali, no, it's so worn out, he's not going to read from it. But by Geniza, but he has to put it in shemus. So Shamte Genizte is burying it right there in the window. Okay, Amarav. Rav says, if on Shabbos or for impurity, you need to have a mechitza. You can make a mechitza, you can make it out of anything except for salt and for fat. You can't use a pile of fat for a mechitza. Why? What's the reason? Salt, because it will dissolve, and fat, because it will melt. It will. The salt will spread, and the fat will melt in the heat. So Shmuel says, no, you're allowed to use salt. Amar Rav Pafle Pligi. There's no argument between Rab and Shmuel about this. Abimelech Sedaimis, Abimelech is Tzuruknis. It depends what type of salt. If it's Melech Sedaimis, the salt from Sedaim, that is not going to spread. Those are thick pieces of salt, thick
Just
rock.
to say it, they're dabbling on the side of Lot's wife, so that's a good mechitza.
It's a good mechitza. So the doctor is saying that if you need a mechitza to daven with Lot's wife, that's it. Or maybe the salt itself is a mechitza. Okay. Or istruknis, I don't know what istruknis is. It's a another type of salt that over there would spread. Rabba said that you're allowed to make 2 piles of salt. And you put a beam on top between the 2 piles. What happens over there is that the beam holds the salt down, and the salt holds the beam. So over there, it's not going to spread. You can even use that. And there's still no machlekes hadikakara delekakara. We could say that both Rav and Shmuel are talking about the salt of istruknis salt, which really would spread. Question is there a beam on top? According to Shmuel, his case was with a beam on top. When you have a mill, you have to distance the mill from the wall 3 tvachim from the bottom stone, which is 4 tvachim from the upper stone, because the bottom one is wider than the upper one. My timer. Salt.
With the mavoy on top, 2 beams of salt.
Yeah, probably. My time, if they have these beautiful, they have a beautiful cave, these salt caves. Yeah, beautiful cave. Right, I don't know where they are. They're in America. They have these salt in Idaho or something. Utah. It says my timer. What's the reason why you have to remove them for distance them from the wall? Misham tiria, because of the vibration that the mill makes. But Tanya, 1 second. So we have a brisa that says shel chamar shleisha mina istrubel shein abra mina kelas. 3 from the bottom one, which is 4 from the top one. Another type of mill over there. It's also my tiriak over there. That mill is fixed to the ground. And over there, you have a donkey that moves that mill. Now that mill doesn't create vibrations. So why over there? It's the same halacha. It's elamishum kala. It's because of the noise, which maybe means the noise either of the donkey, maybe means the noise of the mill. It means the noise makes a vibration. I don't know. The oven also. You have to distance 3 from the bottom one, which is 4 from the top one. I'm sorry, from the base. I'm sorry, over here there's a base and then there's an oven. The base is wider. It says Amar Abaya says Shmamina, we learned from this that the base of an oven is a tefach. And this is very significant. If someone buys an oven, you should know that you should make sure to get a base that's the proper size. That's a full tefach. Okay, let's leave it over here.
What was the point of bringing all these cases of